Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to talk about none other than Steph Curry. We're going to talk about, in particular, how much strain he puts on the defense, in particular involving ball screens and why that is. Let's go. We're going to break this into 5 different areas of strain, but in reality, the first one is the most important because the strain it puts in category number 1 is what triggers all the other ones. So the first one we're going to look at is Steph's ability to simply shoot it if there's any lapse in defensive coverage whatsoever. Here we can see defense is slightly off, not quite there with the switch, and instantly he shoots it. Being able to shoot this with efficiency puts strain on the defense that you've never seen before, that any player has never seen before prior to Steph. Again, defender slightly late with it, no closeout, Steph gets a shot up. So we can see the ball screen is going to come up here. Essentially, they're trying to target the Bucks pre-switch straight there, but essentially they're trying to target this new defender right here. So if this defender is slightly late, we can see he's kind of far back. Steph's going to have this area, and Steph is going to shoot that ball 90% of the time because he knows that's where he thrives. And he knows that the Warriors' offense is predicated on his ability to make this shot. So him right there, we saw Sengun is a little bit far off, wasn't quite ready for it, and Steph has a clean look to a 3 and he's shooting that ball. And in several of these clips, we've seen this same style of action where Draymond comes and switches late, or Draymond comes for the second screen and sprints up. And the goal of this is to make it difficult for this defender because he has to come a long way very quickly because Draymond was sprinting. And if he's slightly slow at all, he's going to give openings, and Steph is more than willing to shoot that ball. And one important caveat here is that, if I was coaching on defense, I would tell them this was a good closeout. Most of the times, these are not bad closeouts, This is a hand up, hand in the face as Steph gets ready to launch that ball. And, there's not much more you can do other than contest it like that. But Steph's ability to shoot is just simply so great. All right, so then we get to some of the nuances involved in the screen and why this creates even more openings for Steph. And so the first one's going to be on this ball screen. We're going to see the defender kind of guesses wrong. I don't really know what the defender's doing. Maybe they're supposed to be icing and forcing it this way. In fact, he is yelling, so it's possible. But so the defender, the Draymond's defender, is going to go to this side, and Steph is simply going to say, okay, well, I'll go to the other side. If you're not going to force me this way, I'm just going to walk into this open 3, and he has no contest because the defender was miscommunicating. Same concept here, but this gives a little shout out to Draymond as well because they're going to have one screen and then Draymond's going to set the other screen. And because Austin Reeves is trying to force it back this way, which I'm guessing the last defender was supposed to do, Draymond's simply going to flip it, which means that LeBron now has to close up this way and he's not quite ready to get there. And that gives Steph slight opening to shoot the ball. So those would be examples of Steph attacking ice coverage or miscommunication on defense, either of those. The next one is going to be kind of like a drop. We're watching this player right here, in particular, Rudy Gobert. He's going to drop off, and this is normally something you wouldn't ever do against Steph because simply of his shooting gravity. But you can see Rudy's going to essentially be going backwards, and because he's going backwards, that gives Steph just a little bit of freedom coming downhill. And again, even though Rudy has the length, Steph is willing to shoot with the minimal openings. Same thing here, we're watching Victor, and I think honestly this is just Victor kind of not knowing who he's going against, but he's going to start dropping back, and normally this would be fine, but with Steph it's probably not okay to give him that kind of shot. So the next example is going to be, okay, so if you can't go too low, you have to essentially get aggressively out there. And so that's one of the things Steph has gotten remarkably better at during his career. Essentially, since he left Davidson to now, he's so much better of a ball handler. And so this is the example of what Steph tries to do if you get too high. So we can see the post player right here is going to close out aggressively. He wants to make sure Steph doesn't get a 3-pointer up here. So Steph's like, okay, I'm going to go in that gap that you left. I'm going to cross back over and essentially try and attack him one-on-one when all his momentum is going this way. And then Steph's going this way and use his ball handling to beat the defense and get a layup instead. Honestly, as a defense, even though this ends up in a layup, this is probably just about your best case scenario because you have to respect him so much as a shooter. We can see the defender coming out aggressively again, wants to make sure Steph doesn't get a 3. Steph crosses over, attacks the high leg, and gets to the middle and allows that to create the open shot on the inside instead of the defense giving him the shot on the outside. And the final example ties back into what we saw at the very beginning. And this is going to be if the defense just decides to full-on switch. So one of the ways to make sure Steph doesn't get a 3 up here is just have this new defender take Steph. And so if you take Steph, then you're already going to be at the level. You'll be able to guard him. And so the Warriors obviously have to deal with this on a regular basis. And Steph's usual mentality is simply attack the post player. And so this is another example of Steph's ball handling really helping him out as he's gotten older. And so here Boston's going to switch this. So right here we got a hand up immediately up here. And Steph's like, okay, I'm going to try and take advantage of it. And again, it's so difficult for a post player to cover that because Steph needs just tiny bits of gray area. And we can actually see there's a few possessions later, the same game, because Boston likes to switch everything. Cornet, same thing. Like, you're not used to, as a post player, guarding shooters that are quick out here on the perimeter that need as little daylight as Steph does. And Steph is able to give you just a little bit of space and shoot it over the top. And so because you have to be marginally worried about his driving, you tend to back up just a slight step because post players don't want to give up a drive. And instead he shoots a three over the top. So all in all, because of Steph's shooting ability, he creates a lot of weaknesses in the defense, a lot of inefficiencies in the defense naturally. So the first one is going to be if you make a mistake and don't get out far enough, he's going to hit a three over the top 100%. The second one is if you make any kind of mistake where you go to the wrong side on defense. If you go to the wrong side, he is absolutely just going to torch that because you're going to be walking into an open three. And then if you drop too far back, if that's part of your game plan to drop back, he is going to shoot over the top, walk into an easy three. And otherwise, if you respect him too much and close out too aggressively, he's also going to use your momentum against you and try and drive to create open shots at the rim. And then finally, if you resort to full on switching and put post players on Steph, he's going to use his quickness, side-to-side movement, and quick release to give them something they're completely not used to and allow that to create wide open threes. Steph is truly one of a kind, in my opinion. If you enjoyed, feel free to like and subscribe. But most importantly, have a blessed rest of your day.